Hey everyone, thank you for watching. Today's video I'm really excited to do. It's going to be a new ranking new eyeshadow palettes video. I've done 2 of these in the past, so I will link them down below. I took inspiration from Jen Loves Reviews because I love the way that she does her, kind of like her makeup monthly. She does them in a countdown format, and I really wanted to count down something, and I came up with eyeshadow palettes, and I've been having a lot of fun doing these videos, and I've gotten some really good feedback on them. So today I have 5 more palettes that I'm going to be ranking from 5, or like my least favorite, down to 1, my most favorite. I think this week might be the most shocking ranking video yet out of the 3 I've done, but why don't we go ahead and get started. Okay, before we jump in, I do want to say I'm testing out a bunch of new stuff on my face right now. I do always link all my makeup in the description box if anyone is curious, but part of my job is to try out new products to be able to review, and I don't like a lot that's going on my face right now. Not only do I not like looking at it, I don't even like the way my skin feels at this moment. So I'm gonna try to make it through this video as quickly as I can, because I honestly really want to go wash my face because there is some things happening I am not a fan of right now. So I thought I'd just throw that out there at you. I'm gonna try to avoid looking at the viewfinder, okay? Oh, the perils of being a YouTuber, woo! Okay, so just like when I posted this video, I think it was last month, the 5 palettes that I was ranking, I genuinely liked all of them. There wasn't one that was an extreme miss for me. There wasn't one that I'm like absolutely not terrible, would not recommend. And that's the same for this week. Just like I did in the last video, I'm going to be ranking these mostly based on how much inspiration I get out of the individual palettes, how often I want to reach for them, you know, which ones I just reach for more, I want to bring with me when I've been going out of town. We've been moving this past month, and there's been a couple times where I've grabbed, you know, an eyeshadow palette or 2 to take with me to the new house as well when I was getting ready over there. So that is how I'm breaking it down for the ranking this week. And starting off at number 5, I think this is where a lot of people are going to be surprised. It is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Riviera palette. Oh, I know. So this palette is $45. I did purchase this myself from Ulta. I believe it was from Ulta Beauty. It's available at Ulta and Sephora and the Anastasia website. I picked it up from Ulta, and I mentioned it in a Will I Bite video, and I was like, you know what? I'm just really feeling this right now. I live in Iowa. We've had a horrible winter here in the Midwest and a lot of other places, and when I saw this getting released with like the nautical themed packaging on the outside and then these more colorful shades on the inside, it was just that like, I'm ready for spring, I'm ready for warm weather, I'm ready for some fun colors, like okay, let's do it. Like it just had me excited. And another reason why I purchased it too is because I like Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow palettes, Modern Renaissance, Soft Glam, Sultry, Norvina. I really like the quality of the eyeshadow palette, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Even though I'm not the most colorful eyeshadow palette girl, I tend to go for neutrals quite a bit. Every once in a while you like to amp it up, you like to do something fun and different, and I was like, yeah, I'm going for it. So the first thing I want to say is that I think that this is a good eyeshadow palette. Like I said, I like all 5 that I'm going to be ranking. I like the formula of this Anastasia palette, and honestly I feel like this one is just a little bit different from the other ones because with the shimmers I do not get as much fallout as I normally do in the Anastasia palettes. Usually I still do recommend doing your eye makeup first with these because you definitely do still get fallout, especially with the shimmers, but I feel like it's not as much as some of the other palettes in the past, and I appreciate that. I do have 2 pressed pigments in here with the pinks and the purples, and I have tried the pink on my lids, and it did stain my eyelids. I just have to be careful of when I'm going to be using those colors and kind of like cognizant of what I'm doing the next day, because sometimes it can be hard to cover up the staining on your lids. So just throwing that one out there. But overall, other than that, quality wise, I think that this is really nice. I like that you get a mirror. You do get a double-ended brush. I really wasn't a fan of the brush. I normally do like the Anastasia brushes in here, and I think that they're a nice bonus since, you know, it is a higher end palette. But I could not use the brush that came in this palette. The more blending side was so incredibly scratchy, and it was falling onto my face. Actually, the first time that I used this palette on camera, I used that brush and I had to switch out and get a different brush. So the brush for me is that was just a no-go. That I didn't like that at all. So that was unfortunate there. The biggest thing for me of why I'm ranking this at number 5, because for a while there was what I'm gonna put at number 4. I was thinking of flip-flopping these. Like I thought that's originally how they would be. But the reason that I'm ranking this one at number 5 is because I can't figure out what to do with this palette almost every single time I have reached for it. I open it and I stare and I stare and I stare and I don't know what to do, and I get on Instagram and I look at photos, and you know, of course, because this is a more colorful palette, and it probably didn't help that the friggin' PR search thing, whatever that was happening during this time, because people were just creating the most, like, to me, the most complex, complicated, colorful cut crease, double cut crease, glitter, just all this stuff happening. And I am not a makeup artist. I'm not artistically creative in that sense. Like, I tried to do one look where it was more outside of my comfort zone, but I can't figure out what to do, and I feel like I just struggle with this palette, and it makes me not want to reach for it. There's the couple times that I have gone in to use this palette because I knew I wanted to get a photo to be able to insert in this video, I was almost like dreading it, because I'm like, I just don't know what to do. And again, it's why I'm wanting to say, like, I don't think that this is a bad palette. I don't think the quality is bad. I don't think the formula is bad. I don't think anything of that. It's just personal preference for me. It's not working out because I can't figure out what to do, and I feel so stumped when I look at it. For some reason, when I saw the first photos of it, I immediately thought you can do colorful and you can also do neutral, and you can, but also at the same time, it really is more colorful. It really is. So if you love your colorful makeup, I think that you would really, really enjoy this palette. So even though I'm ranking it at number 5, if that's what you go for, I think the quality is really good in this one, and I think that you would really like it. But I have to do the rankings based on me personally and what I enjoy and what I'm going to reach for. And I'm not going to return the palette because I don't think that that's necessary, but honestly, I don't know. I'm gonna keep it around for right now because it is a newer palette, and I'll play with it probably a little bit more, but I can honestly see myself decluttering this because I just can't figure out what to do with it. And you know, maybe it could go to a new home where someone else would just love the crap out of this palette. But for me, I just am so stumped looking at the Riviera. Is anyone else like that? Next up at number 4, this honestly, when I got this palette, when I opened it up, the first look I did with it, I was like, you know what, I bet in my next palette ranking video, I bet this is going to be number 5. And then I tried it some more, and then I found myself wanting to reach for it again, and then I found myself creating a look with it and having one look in mind and then ending up doing something else midway and being like, but I still want to go back to that original look. There's just looks that I want to do with this palette, and I had to give it number 4 versus number 5 based on my personal preference, my inspiration, and how much I'm reaching for it. Because like I said, the Riviera palette, like, it's pretty much got me stumped at this point. This palette here from MAC, I still want to go into. I still have more looks that I want to create with it. So this is from the Art Library collection that came out, and this is the Flame-Boyant palette. So MAC did send this over to me. So it's a nice eyeshadow palette. You have the mirror in here, and this one is $48, and it's also available at the Ulta website. So when I first opened it up, I was like, it's your basic warm tone palette with the reds and the oranges and the bronzes. Like, we've seen this a million times. Like, okay, fine. You know, I did a first look with it, and I was like, okay, you know what, I really did like that look. I got a lot of compliments on it. And then I went into it a second time and created another look, and I was like, wow, you know what, that one's really pretty too. And then I've just noticed that I get excited to go into this palette. And again, if we have completely different makeup tastes, you're probably like, boo, and I understand. There's just so many other color combinations that I want to do, and are any of them, you know, out there and something I've never done before and something that I can't get from other palettes? No, not necessarily. So it's still why it's ranking a little bit higher up on the list, which means lower in preference, but I still think that is a nice palette. I will say also that the quality of every shade in here doesn't necessarily blow me away. These 2 darker ones here at the bottom, they're a little bit harder to work with. I mostly use them on the lower lash line, or just like very slightly deepening out the outer corner. But I've tried like packing both of these when I wasn't necessarily creating like a full look. I was just trying shadows on my eyes in different ways to try them out. If I were to like really pack them a lot onto my lid and try to blend them out, they are tougher to blend. And this red one here, it swatches pretty bad, I would say, but it's also just it's just more sheer, and you really have to build it up on the eyes. So those are the 2 that I had the most problems with. But like the shimmers, I think are good quality. I would recommend spraying your brush because I think that it does help. I do like especially these 3 right here, the browns and kind of this orange, I enjoy so much. I almost always go into that orange. So I do appreciate that. So overall, I do think that it's higher priced and the quality inside doesn't necessarily blow me away. It's not the worst I've ever tried, but you know, I don't think that this palette is necessarily worth the higher price tag, especially because the shade selection inside, again, we've seen this color scheme in palettes. We probably have a lot of these, so is it worth it to go out and spend the higher price on this palette? Probably not. But if I'm comparing this to the Riviera palette and ranking them, you know, next to each other, I am going to go into this one more, and I'm still excited to create some different looks with this one and some different, you know, colors on the eyes, whereas the Riviera, I'm just a little bit stumped, so that's why I'm ranking them that way. So again, I still like all 5 palettes that I'm talking about. I still think that this one is okay, but it's definitely not my favorite from the bunch. So coming in third was a palette that I didn't expect to like, and I kind of went into trying it with, I don't want to say my mind made up, but I had already seen a couple reviews on it, and people are like, you know, so, and some people are like, no, don't like this at all, and I was like, I'm probably not gonna like it very much. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised by it. This is from Urban Decay. This is the Naked Reloaded palette. So Urban Decay discontinued the original Naked palette, and they came out with this Naked Reloaded palette. This is $44. So inside looks like this. You do not get a brush with this one, but I'm okay with that. You do have a mirror. I was trying out this palette in a video. I mentioned that I feel like this palette makes sense, especially because the Naked being discontinued. You know, I talked about my friends who they work, you know, either corporate jobs or jobs where they have, you know, it's expected of them to wear a little bit more neutral makeup and such, and how much they love the Naked palettes. I helped my friend with her makeup for her wedding a couple weeks ago, and some of the bridesmaids, every single person had a Naked palette with them. I'm not even kidding you there. And a lot of them on the like original Naked palettes, like the Naked 2s, these really neutral shades were gone or had hit pan or were completely used up. So I understand too, like making those bigger sizes, because I think the people who really, really enjoy these tones would go through them quickly, because I have seen that myself. But I wasn't sure what to expect, because I actually haven't loved the Naked palettes in the past. I've tried a couple of them, and I just always kind of thought that they were okay. And same with this one, you know, it's falling at number 3 right in the middle here. I think that this is a pretty okay, a pretty decent palette. I just ended up liking it more than I thought I was going to. And once again, I'm going into it inspired with more looks that I want to do, more looks that I want to create. I will also say it's going to be the photo where I'm wearing a green shirt, I believe, and I think I have curly hair in that photo. There was a video that I did, and I was wearing this palette, and I was overwhelmed with comments of people saying how much they liked my eye makeup. I am trying to think back of when I have gotten that many compliments on a makeup look in a video, and I can't think of one in recent time, and it was with the Naked Reloaded. And even people were saying who know I linked my makeup in the description box, I had to go see what was on your eyes. I can't believe it's the Naked Reloaded. Oh my gosh. And it was just a simple kind of like bronzy smoky eye. I mean, it wasn't anything earth-shattering. It wasn't anything that required a lot of time or a ton of blending or just all of these different skills. I mean, it was kind of like my go-to basic look, and people loved it, and I was just so shocked. So I've been more impressed with this palette than I thought that I was going to be. I really do like this palette. These 2 shades especially are just so beautiful, Reputation and Burn. I think that they're gorgeous. I love the browns in here. I love the neutrals in here. I like that we have a little pop of color there. I will say Angel Fire isn't my favorite shade. That one is a little bit on the crumbly side, and I really only have been enjoying it for like an inner corner or a brow bone highlight. It also has a lot of fallout to it. Like when you put your brush in there, it's automatically just like really crumbly. You get a lot of fallout with it, and I don't like it for packing it on the eye. I'm more impressed with this palette than I thought it was going to be. Again, it is a fairly neutral palette. It's the $44. Does everybody need this palette? Am I saying you need to run out and get it right away? No, but if you do like the Urban Decay palettes and you were considering this one, but you weren't sure that you needed it, but you're a big Urban Decay fan, I think that you would probably like it. If these are your tones and these are what you reach for, I think that you would like it. I haven't really had any other issues with the formula in this one. I think the mattes blend well. The other shimmers look pretty. I recommend using them with a damp brush because it helps bring them, you know, bring the intensity up a bit. There's still more that I want to do with this palette. I still feel inspired by it, and I do think that the quality is nice in it. So I think this is a pretty darn decent palette from Urban Decay. So coming in at number 2 is a palette that I'm so excited to talk about. I'm so excited to review, and I'm so excited that I enjoyed it as much as I did. This is from Marc Jacobs. This is the iconic Steeletteo palette. Okay, so this guy is $49.50, and that is pretty pricey. And to be honest, between this one and the one that's coming in at number 1, it was so close, and I opened them both up and stared at them. I mean, this one it's basically $50 and you get 7 shades. That is very pricey. There is, you know, obviously a very like particular theme going on in this palette, and we have more of the cool tones in here, but still it's so good. I knew this one was either going to end up at 1 or 2 from, like, I would say the second time that I started trying it, and I was like, I'm just so impressed. I can't wait to talk to people about this palette. So again, we have the Steeletteo palette from Marc Jacobs. I did have a subscriber send this over to me, which I'm so thankful for. This was one that I had been eyeing, and I was considering it. I put it in a Will I Buy It video, and I was like, I'm just attracted to this palette. You know, it is a higher price point, and I had never tried Marc Jacobs eyeshadow, so I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. And I was seeing a couple of my friends start to review it on YouTube, and they were saying really good things about it, and I was like, I think maybe I'm gonna do it. I think maybe I'm gonna do it. And then this showed up, and I was just so excited. I was so eager to play with it. I really enjoyed the color scheme in here. I really enjoy the cool tones. I like the mirror. I love like just like the sleek packaging. I talked about Marc Jacobs Beauty in my brands that excite me tag when I talked about the top 5 and the bottom 5, and you know, I really enjoyed their aesthetic. I enjoyed the packaging. Everything just typically looks, you know, it looks high end. It also costs a high end price tag, but it looks high end. This is one where every time I do my makeup with this palette, I love it so much. I have mixed, you know, I've done just matte looks with this one. I've played with the shimmers. I enjoy this one so much, and I like that because I'm not, you know, the most artistically creative, and I'm not putting myself down when I say that. It just is what it is, and it's just another thing that I have to learn through my makeup journey, and you know, the palettes that I keep in my collection, and what I do when I'm getting ready to do my makeup. But because I'm not, sometimes these smaller, more, you know, of a color story theme palettes, they actually help me out because I'm not staring at a giant palette getting really overwhelmed with all these different color combinations. I'm like, you know what, I'm going in this palette and this is what I'm doing today, and I know it's a look that I can do it quickly, I can do it well, it's gonna look good, and so that's a big reason why I like this palette. But the quality, the formula of these eyeshadows are so nice. These 2 mattes are just absolutely beautiful. There's been times where I just blend these 2 together on my lid and add some mascara, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good to go. I love this beautiful shimmer in here right in the middle. I think that one's so pretty. This one is very cool. It's a little bit more on the chunky side, but can really amp up the look. The only shadow that kind of intimidates me is this darkest one here. I've mostly been using that one as for like lower lash line, and there was one time that I played with it a little bit on the outer corner of my eye, but I don't go for those really dark shades a ton. You know, I even enjoy having more of this matte white down there. You can lay it all over the lid. You can use it for the brow bone highlight if you want to do something more matte, the inner corner highlight. But it's mostly the formula of this palette that has me so impressed. I understand why it's higher priced because the shadows just perform so well. The mattes and the shimmers, but the mattes especially really impress me. I feel like they just like blend themselves. And so I've been so inspired by this palette. I've really enjoyed going into it. Between that, the color story, the packaging, everything, I just so impressed with the Steeletteo. Alrighty, so that has brought us to our number 1 palette, and once again, number 1 spot is going to a Colourpop palette. This is the Sweet Talk palette. This was part of the spring collection from Colourpop. Now, in my last palette ranking video, I also had another Colourpop palette at number 1, the It's My Pleasure palette. And like I said, when I opened up Colourpop and Marc Jacobs and I put them next to each other and I was really looking at them and trying to decide, I didn't want Colourpop to be number 1 simply because they are a more affordable brand. I really wanted to make sure it was because I love this eyeshadow palette. I'm creating a lot of looks. I'm inspired. You know, all those sort of different things. Honestly, even though this one is more affordable and you do get more shades, I love this eyeshadow palette and I almost skipped over this one. Oh, okay, so this is the Sweet Talk palette. The only thing I don't love is that it doesn't have a mirror. Some Colourpop palettes have a mirror, some don't. And it is $18. But these tones are me, and I love them for spring. I think they're so beautiful. You have a lot of corals in here, which I think is a lot of fun. But I almost skipped over most of the spring collection because sometimes Colourpop just comes out with so much and so many big collections that it gets overwhelming. And I'm like, no, you know, it's just another collection. I'm gonna skip. That's exactly what I said in my Will I Buy It video when I was talking on the collection. Colourpop ended up sending me quite a bit from their spring line. I have a video, you know, swatching every single shade on my eyes, swatching the lipsticks, the cheek products, etc. So I will link that one down below. But as I was going through with this palette, I was like, whoa. Wait a minute. I was liking so many shades I was putting on. And then at the end, I just kind of put together an all matte look. And I was so happy with how that look turned out, and every other look that I've done with this one I've just enjoyed so much. And one more reason why I gave it the boost over Marc Jacobs is because I had done 3 looks with all 5 palettes that I put in this video. I did 3 looks where I took a photo so I can insert it in here, and there was one time where I was getting ready to sit down and film, and I was like, oh, you know what, I can grab one of the eyeshadow palettes so I can insert an extra look. Which one should it be? And I put all 5 out, and this was the one that I was like, you know what, there's so many looks I want to do with this palette. I'm gonna grab this one, and that's the one that, you know, I'm gonna do the 4th and, you know, extra look with. So I mean, to me that means it has to be number 1, taking away the price, taking away amount of shades, all of that. If that is what's, you know, really calling to me, I really want to keep using this palette. I feel like that it just has to be number 1. So I'm just really enjoying this palette. That's in here beautiful. Again, I absolutely love these corals. I don't love that we have pressed glitters, just because that's me. That's a personal preference. I don't need pressed glitters in my palettes, to be honest. They aren't what I reach for a ton. The glitters are both very pretty on the eyes, don't get me wrong, but they're just so. And then this shade right here in the top row, this is actually a Super Shock formula, but I can tell that it's been reformulated because it feels like it feels so wet. I was gonna say soaking wet. It's not that dramatic, Samantha, reel yourself in, but it feels incredibly wet and more like the original Super Shock formula that I would try. It feels more moussey. This feels straight like I already put, you know, droplets of like Fix Plus or something in the shadow. So I'm very curious to see as time goes on how that shadow does in here, if it's going to dry out. I'm not sure. As of so far, I haven't noticed anything yet, but I'll be curious how that goes. But right away, I was like, okay, that probably isn't necessary for me, but actually I kind of ended up liking the shade more than I thought I was going to. I did a look where I just did a couple of the corals on the inner and outer part of my eye, and then I just put this in the middle as kind of a spotlight, and it actually gives a really pretty look. It is a little bit more on the glittery side without being the pressed glitter, so I actually ended up quite enjoying it. The shade Garden Date right here, this reminds me of a bit of a toned down version of the Ram pigment that Kathleen Lights did with Colourpop, and that is a really cool pigment. But if pigments freak you out, or if it's just like too much orange, too much gold, this one is really pretty, and it is just a little bit more on the toned down side. This is what I had on in my, I think it was my latest Will I Buy It video. I had more of like a coral top on, and then I had Garden Date on the lid, and I thought that it was so pretty. Also, Melody is a really cool kind of like color shifting shade. It goes from kind of this rosy tone to a gold. There's just so much I want to do with this palette. It's so pretty. It's so springtime. The corals are absolutely stunning. I have green eyes, and I think that this pairs really well with green eyes. It's so complimentary. But once again, Colourpop pressed eyeshadow palettes are just so impressive to me. I enjoy them so much. The mattes are easy to blend. You do have, you know, some different formulas in here if that's something fun for you to play around with, but for $18, I think that this palette is a steal. I would have been so disappointed in myself if I would have ended up passing over this one completely, because I'm blown away with it. I'm super impressed. So this had to be my number 1, and I've been having so much fun with this palette, and we'll continue to make some looks here. But after that, that's going to wrap it up for my latest Ranking New Eyeshadow Palettes video. Let me know what you thought down below. I'm a little bit curious to see how the comments are going to come in for this one, but I would love to know your thoughts. Other than that, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I hope that you also consider subscribing before you go, and I'll catch you guys in tomorrow's video.